My next guest is living proof that crime does pay, though he might argue with that. This man's amorality saw him create one of the fastest growing brokerages in New York to fund his life of excess. After serving 22 months in jail, he published a well-known book about his escapades called The Wolf of Wall Street. For his advice on investing in the current market and tell us why we should take Jordan Belfort's advice on this sort of thing, he joins me in the studio. How are you, mate?
Doing good, Peter. How are you?
Good to see you. Now, listen, mate, it was a pretty tough intro, but a lot of people think that. You know, there's two views on Jordan Belfort. One is, OK, he's a guy who's made good, he's an inspiration, he's a great sales guy, but also he's a guy who did wrong and now he's doing well out of it. What do you say to people who say that to you?
I think on some level, to say that, you know, crime pays is a fallacy. I paid dearly for the things I had done wrong, and if it wasn't for the 5% of things I did wrong, 95% was strictly legit, and it was the 5% that got me in trouble. I'd probably be worth, you know, a few $1 billion by now. My business was venture capital. I was, you know, taking companies public, and I ended up going out of business because of the things I had done wrong right before the internet boom. So it cost me dearly. The fact that I came back from that's the inspirational side. And when I do a lot of seminars, as you know, and corporate trainings, and I think that, you know, when they relate to my story, one thing I'm very clear about is that that's not the path you want to take. You don't want to, you know, have to fall to the bottom as I did and then rise back up. The better path, the more empowering path to humanity is to kind of do things right from the beginning and then, you know, grow and grow and grow.
But you also grew a brokerage as well, didn't you, with lots of young people who you, in a sense, brought up in the Gordon Gekko mould, I think you once told me.
Yes.
And that was a very successful operation.
Yeah.
How did you grow that? What was the core driver of that successful business?
The driver was a system I created for sales and persuasion called the straight line system, and I could basically, you know, even now take pretty much any human being and show them the basic art and the science of how to close the deal. And in matters of wealth and success, probably the single most important distinction, bar none, is the ability to share your vision and essentially close the deal. So. Back then, I taught all these young kids how to do that, and they, you know, soared and soared financially. The problem was I lost my ethics along the way, got greedy, and that was really the downfall. So it was sales on one side and also marketing on the other, showing people how to market and whatnot. Those are really the two distinctions I figured out at a very young age.
How old were you then? You wouldn't have been very old yourself, would you?
No, I was 25 when it started, and yeah, I came from a poor family, and if you would have asked me when I was 21 what I wanted to be when I was older, I'd say rich. So it wasn't sort of had the vision of really what I wanted. I wanted money.
Materialism was the main driver.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And then I went down to Wall Street, come from a very good family. No one ever gotten in trouble. And as you said, it was in the wake of Gordon Gekko saying greed is good, and I kind of bought into that, as many other people bought into it. And then when I hit on this ability, this system I created for teaching people to sell, persuade, and also the marketing side, that was it. I mean, it happened so fast. Before I knew it, I went from having 10 people working for me to 100 to 1,000. And over the years, I trained thousands and thousands of people in how to, you know, close the deal and whatnot. So that's really how it started.
Were you always going to serve 22 months, or did you get off lightly? What was the actual sentence? It
was actually 48 months was the sentence. But what happens in the U.S., there's certain deductions for good behavior, and also I went through a drug program, as you know, I had a massive drug addiction. So I had actually been sober before I went to jail. I'm sober for 14 years now, believe it or not, which is pretty cool. But you get time off for completing a drug program. So altogether, I served about 22 months, which is pretty much typical for the sentence that I had.
It's funny, you know, the kind of emails I get when you're on the program is that, you know, people are fascinated about your achievement, fascinated the story as well. But some people say to me, but what about the people who lost money? How do you respond to that kind of criticism when they say, well, there were people who lost money while he was doing his excesses and whatever? What's your defence for that?
Well, I don't really have a defense. I made a mistake, and people lost money. And I continue to pay back money to the people who lost money.
That's the point I was going to say. You still have a program.
And a lot has been paid back. A lot has been paid back, not just by me, by other people that were involved in the whole case as well. So money is still being paid back.
Is that an American legal process that you can be obligated to pay the money back as you become wealthier after making a mistake, or is it something you just decide to do yourself?
No, I mean, it's not really black and white, but it's something that when I first got out of jail I was obligated to do. Now it's not, because out for many years, but I still continue to pay. And, you know, my hope is ultimately to pay everything back. But that takes time, but I'm doing well. You know, I'm fortunate. I'm fortunate that I was able to essentially take what had happened, and when I, you know, wrote the book, The Wolf of Wall Street, I had no idea it would turn into, you know, a whole global speaking tour and training entrepreneurs and venture capitalists. But I'm fortunate that I was able to sort of turn that corner. But again, this is not the path to wealth I suggest other people take.
No.
The idea is to do it right in the beginning. You know,
if someone reads the book, do they learn positive things, or is it just a great story, in a sense a novel based on fact?
Good question. Here's the distinction. In the book is both the secret to success and the secret to failure. They're both in there. Yeah. Problem is, it's wrapped up, as you said, in some wild tale that sometimes you get lost just in the story itself and the insanity and the excess. And so I think that if you were to really look at it objectively, yeah, you could dissect out the secret to success in the sense that, number one, the formula for selling and persuading, marketing, entrepreneurship, and then, of course, the aspects of failure, which are greed and not really having a vision that empowers other people. It's just about making money as much as you can, as fast as you can. And clearly there's a roadmap of drug addiction in there, seeing the disastrous consequences of drug addiction.
Did drugs come first, or did it come after? The success was too hard to take, you were too young, and you fell into drugs. How did the drugs fit into the whole scene?
Drugs came on relatively early, but drugs are very insidious. They creep. So it wasn't as if I started off being massively addicted in the beginning. I was doing it, you know, occasionally on, you know, a weekend, then all of a sudden it was maybe Friday and Saturday night, then maybe on Thursday night, because I take Friday off, and before I knew it, it was an everyday affair. And once the drugs take hold, what happens is your reasoning center becomes basically completely shut down, and things like, you know, guilt and remorse are sort of knocked out of the picture. So I look back at those days right now, and I say, I can't believe I did the things I did, but at the time, I will tell you, it seemed perfectly normal. That's the danger of, you know, when you start kind of going over the line of morality, you get desensitized to it, and before you know it, you're doing things you thought you'd never do, associating with people you never thought you'd associate with, and it seems perfectly okay. So that's the danger.
Okay, we made that comment. How would he play the rally if he could? But you said to me, I still can. And do you play the market still?
I do, but not.
As an investor, wealth builder, or as a speculator?
Mostly a wealth builder. I don't really speculate because it annoys me, because I used to essentially own the casino, and now to have to go into the casino and be at the table gambling, it's really frustrating for me. There are certain times where I see great opportunities in the market. Now is not really one of them. I'm not saying the market's going up or down. I'm saying it's not really clear where the trend is right now. And yet a couple of years ago, at least in the United States, when I knew that the bank portfolios were laced with massive numbers of toxic mortgages, it was simply, you could just shoot darts and pick any of the bank stocks and make a bloody fortune. Not so easy right now. So, you know, for me, I'm more of an holding pattern at this moment.
Yeah. So what is your suspicion for America next year? Are things getting better on your observation? Last time you were here, you were worried.
I think I called it pretty good.
Yeah.
I said it's going to stay in a tight range, a slow slogging recovery.
And do you live in California?
In California.
That's a state where you can really feel the pain.
Yeah. And I said Australia, I thought would be doing well. And meanwhile, the Australian dollar was almost at parity now, so I was pretty much right on the money, you know, but I guess that could be an accident. But I pretty much had it right. And my sense is that, again, with the U.S., the same, you know, we have this issue now with stemmed foreclosures again, because there was apparently fraud on some of the foreclosures. So all that keeps doing is it keeps the overhang over the real estate market. And as long as the real estate market stays depressed, it's very hard for the overall market to come back, because there's this perception of lost wealth, which
it restricts the shopper.
Yeah,
and the American, especially in California.
Spending, bingo. Reduces consumer spending. 2/3 of the U.S. economy is consumer spending based, so it's sort of this vicious cycle. So it's tough. And I think things are going to be very good in Australia, though. I'm very bullish on Australia.
Why do you come to Australia? People ask that question. Well, why does he come here? What do you do when you come here? I
love Australia.
Yeah.
I come to Australia because I happen to have a very big business here, a couple of different things. Number one is I do a lot of consulting with corporations. I train sales forces, consult with marketing, do strategic planning with CEOs. Then I also do the public seminars, which I love, where I speak, you know, to 1,000 people plus sometimes. And I was just finished the 6-day training here, which was really cool for sales and persuasion. I'm actually coming back on November 15th, and I'm doing a venture capital course, 3 days, and because that was really my business, was raising money. And I think that, especially in Australia, you know, the banks really aren't there for the small businesses. They're not. It's just not the way.
Particularly post-GFC.
No, yeah, especially post-GFC. So, you know, I think I was at a seminar, my own seminar, and I said, raise your hand if you think that access to capital or lack of it is one of the things that holds you back from achieving massive wealth and success. And literally 90% of the people, and they're all CEOs and want to be entrepreneurs and up-and-coming entrepreneurs, and said lack of capital. So I said, great, I'm going to have a VC course and show you how to raise capital without banks. I think it's a huge thing for a businessman to know how to do. And so many ideas, people die with their music, their ideas on their lips because they don't have money.
Well, give us a taste of what we'll see in November.
Oh, well, I mean, just basically you're going to learn everything from, you know, step one, of course, is how to structure a business plan, but most importantly, how to go out and pitch a business plan. How do you go out and share your idea in a way that's ethical and honest, that also allows you to essentially future pace your success? Meaning, if you go to a venture capitalist, you have to realize that the biggest problem the average person makes is they think with their own pocket. VCs have money. They are in the business of investing money. So, probably you don't have money, like, God, I got to ask someone for $1 million or $3 million, or an angel investor for $500,000. So much of raising capital is mindset. So much of it is the way you actually communicate your message, the formula for communicating. So I teach people really, A, how to structure a business plan, B, how to communicate that plan in a way that just really makes it sexy, but it's honest and ethical and gets them what they want, and everyone's happy. That's really my system. And I raised about $1.5 billion over the years for very small startup companies. And the idea is, listen, some become huge companies, like Steve Madden's shoes, and a bunch of them go out of business, and some do okay. So it's a numbers game, but really, I want to demystify venture capital, because it's not that complicated a business. But
effectively, it's a sales process.
It's a sales process. But, you know, again, they're in the business. They want to give you money because they have to get a return. And it's, you know, on some of who you know, meaning getting into the network of people who are raising money. But most importantly, it's about knowing how to structure your business plan and then communicate that in a way that turns the investors on. And these are smart investors, so you're not going to dazzle them with a bunch of crap. But the idea is to have something that makes economic sense fundamentally and technically, and then share that in a way that gets your point across and doesn't make you give away the store. So the idea is not to raise money, give away 95% of your company, but to keep enough for yourself, have an earn out down the road so you can get some back if you achieve your goals, your numbers.
Jordan Belfort, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure always. Take care.